So in today's tutorial, I'll just to show you how to do a very simple spawn projectile. So see when I press the right mouse button, it's spawning projectiles. So to start with, we're going to go into the third person character and we're going to add an arrow component. So go down to your third person character in your content drawer, blueprints, third person character. So we're in the third person character and we have an arrow there, but we're going to add our own arrow in. So if we click, make sure your mesh is blue, and then we're going to go add and then arrow. And then we have an arrow attached to the mesh. And you know it's attached because it's underneath. So see, so anything that's attached to stuff is like slightly to the right of it, you see? So the back sword, the hand sword, that's attached to the mesh. The arrow component is attached to the capsule component. So you've got a little arrow down, it's going down. So the arrow is attached to the mesh and it's at location 000, rotation 000, scale 111. That's all correct. But we kind of, this arrow is going to be where the projectile spawns from. So if we were to create a projectile now and start spawning it, it would probably start spawning. You see this big red one, that's the direction it's going. So if we made a projectile and started spawning it, it would spawn out this way from this bottom bit here. So we're going to lift this arrow up as if it's coming from like sort of like a gunshot type thing. And we're going to rotate the arrow as well to 90. So pretty much it's, see there, 100 is because that's on the Z. And it's a rotation 90. So you could just put this to 90. And 100. So if I was to go up a little bit, look, location 120 on the Z, location 60 on the Z, because it's 60 from 0. If I put that down to 0, it'd be back at the bottom. So yeah, round about there, 120, compile, save. This is where the projectile is going to spawn from, so from that direction. So we probably don't want it spawning out of the body, so we're going to bring it forward a little bit. See, and now look, on the Y, it's on 60. So it's 60 ahead of 0. Compile and save. So this arrow is important, but it's not going to be in the game. It's just a reference point for where the projectile is going to spawn from. So now we're going to make the input action. So basically the button that triggers the projectile spawning. So we're going to go back down to the content drawer again, go down to input, go down to actions, and in here you see you've got jump, look, mouse look and move. We're going to create a new one, just call it fire. So just right click and then here input action, and you can just call this the same as, see the other ones are called IA underscore, so we're going to call it IA underscore, we could just call it fire, and then go back to the folder above, so input. And then so this was the folder we was just in, actions, and now we're going up again to the folder above it, IMC default. We're going to add this action, the fire, to the array of actions that we've got. So we're going to double click on that, and yours should look something like this. So if you click on mappings, we're going to add the IA fire to these mappings. So if you go to this button, click, all that comes up like that, but you should have this one at the bottom that says none. So now we want to just select the IA fire that we just made. It keeps doing this, so every time you press an input action, it keeps like opening up the other ones. So just don't panic, just close them all back up again and then go back to the one that you've got, fire. On this arrow, click it down, and then we're going to assign this to a key that we want to fire with. So let's just go right mouse button. So you can just click on that, right mouse. Press save, and then you can close this one down now. We're going to go into the third person character and we're just going to put that input action in. So go to your third person character again, go to event graph, and then find a space, and then right click, type IA underscore, and now your options for that come up. We're going to click fire, Now we've got an input action for firing our projectile. Compile, save. Now we're going to create the actual projectile that fires. So go down to your content drawer, find a clean folder or start a new folder, whatever you want. Go to content. You want to start a new folder, right click, new folder. I just because this is a tutorial, I'm putting in this dumpings folder where I just dump stuff. So I'm in this folder. You can arrange your folders however you want. So I'm in just a random folder. We're going to right click, we're going to go to blueprint class, and we're going to create an actor. So an actor is an object that can be placed or spawned in the world. And just call this, could just call it bullet underscore BP. Double left click to open it up. Drag it across and dock it. In this, we're going to just go to the components. We're going to add and a sphere. And this sphere will be really big. So if you want to check the sizes of stuff, go to your normal map and then drag your thing in. So that bullet we just made, look, if we drag this into the map, that's how big the bullet will be. So just sort of judge it how you want it to be. So you can delete that. Go to bullet. Let's just click on this thing to lock all the scale because it's a circle. So you want all scales locked. And then just put like 0.3 and you can unlock that. Compile, save. Thing is, with a projectile, we need it to move. So in blueprints, you can add projectile movement. So if we go add and then type projectile movement, and then that comes at the bottom. And now on this side, this is where all the details for the projectile movement is. So initial speed 0, max speed 0, projectile gravity 1, right? What we want it to be is we want it to go fast. So let's put the speed at 1200. That's not too fast, to be honest. And then max speed at 1200. And then projectile gravity 0. So it just goes straight forward. It doesn't drop to the ground. So if I just drag this in the game now, and simulate, you'll see it fly across. So that's its projectile movement at 1200. We'll just leave it at that speed for now, right? That's pretty much it. The projectile is done. When you want to start adding it so it makes damage and stuff, you can add like on component begin overlap. You can add sphere collisions. You can do line traces. You can do all sorts of stuff. But for now, that's it. Projectile movement. It's got no gravity, so it doesn't fall to the ground. It just goes straight forward, and it's going at 1200 initial speed. We want our player to spawn that whenever we hit the fire button. So now we're going to go back to our third person character, and we're going to create a custom event that spawns this projectile. So underneath where you've got your fire thing that we've added in, right click, custom event, and just call this fire projectile. You can call this what you want, but once you start getting more complicated, you might want to start naming your stuff a bit more, take the naming of stuff a bit more serious. But for now, just for this project, you can call it whatever you want. But remember, this is the custom event that's firing the trigger. So what we're going to do, so look, this is what's good about custom events, right? We've made this custom event. It's called fire projectile. It's got no code attached to it at all. But what we can do is on fire, we can go untriggered, and then we can just type the name of the custom event we just made, fire projectile. So now, if I compile and save, go into the game, and press the right mouse button, it's not doing anything, but it is firing off whatever code I put in this. So now we're going to make the code to spawn the projectile now. So what we want to do is we want to grab the arrow we made, because that's the reference point, drag that out and bring it in. And now off fire projectile, we want to drag out and we want to put spawn actor from class. And then the spawn actor is going to be our projectile. So we called it bullet. And then out of the arrow, right, come out of this and put get socket transform. And then this is basically getting wherever this arrow is, and then drag from return value into there, right? Now, press compile and save, and then see what this does. So, look, press the right mouse button, shooting projectile, shooting loads of them, because you're just holding the button down, it's just constantly firing them. And them projectiles are alive forever, they're just firing. So what we want to do is we're going to go back into the bullet, and on the event graph of the bullet, an event begin playing, we want to give it a lifetime basically. So come out of event begin playing, put delay, and then put say 0.5 seconds, and then out of that put destroy actor. Now destroy actor, you might want to watch other tutorials when it comes to destroying actor, because it's not always the best way to do stuff. But I mean, you can use like object pools and stuff like that, but for this tutorial we're just going to destroy the actor, which means we're going to spawn it, this bullet that we just made. As soon as it spawns, it lives for 0.5 seconds and then it's destroyed, right? This isn't going to solve our constantly spawning problem, but it is going to make the bullet die off. So see, it's only living for 5 seconds and it's dying off, right? We want to go back into our third person character. You can either come off on your input action, go started instead of triggered, so it's only going to do it once. Even if you hold it, it's only going to do it once. You have to hold it each time, so it's not just constantly holding it down. So that's one way to solve that problem. Another way is you can have it untriggered, so you can hold the button down like you would with an SMG or something in Warzone or something like that, and you can come off this and type do once, which means it's only going to do it once. And then after the spawn actor, you can go delay, and basically this is the amount of time that each bullet's going to take to spawn another one. So you could go like 0.1, then out of the delay you could come out of that and reset the do once. So if I was to just do this now without resetting, so without coming off the delay and going into reset, it would only let me spawn this actor once ever. So that's it. I will never be able to spawn that again, because it's telling it to only ever do once, right? So if you come out of the delay and go into reset, it's going to say do once for 0.1 second, and then you can do once again. So it's just splitting it up basically. So see, 1.1 second, you could make that 0.05 and it'd be even faster. So now there's a few things we can change in this. So you're pretty much spawning a projectile there. That's pretty much it. So there's a few things we can do. We could go to projectile movement. We could change the speed of the projectile. We could change the duration that it's living for. So if you want the bullet to travel further, don't forget as well, with the amount of time the bullet's lasting for is relevant to the speed of it as well. So say if this projectile was only going at 300 but it lived for 0.5, it would go further. I mean, it would go shorter, because it's getting in a slower, it's going at a slower speed, living for shorter. So if I put this to 3 seconds at 300, it's going to about the same place as it does. Well, you can work it out mathematically. So you could divide this. I'm not sure what the equation is, but the amount of time it's living for and the speed it's going is how far it's going to get basically. So put it down to about 0.5, and we're going to put this speed up to say 1500. Initial speed and max speed. Initial speed is what's really making the speed go. Other things we can change in this, we can change the delay of the duration between each one. So let's put it at 0.1. We can change the size of the bullet. So let's go to the sphere and change it to say 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. Another thing to think about as well is what variables you're using. So for example, say if you wanted to have like a limited amount of ammo or you wanted to pick ammo back up and stuff, you could create an integer variable. It could be a float, I suppose, but integer for ammo pretty much. I don't know why I'm calling it integer. Just call this ammo. Create it as an integer, which is a solid number. And what you could do is in your code where you're spawning the projectile, you could say, set your ammo to have, say, 50. Then you could drag your ammo in, get ammo. Then as this code's coming off, get ammo, subtract 1, set ammo. And then just drag that in. And then every time that you're shooting this projectile, this 50 will go down by 1. Now, what you could do as well, what you should do is have either in the enhanced input, have a branch there where it would ask if you have more than the ammo needed, basically. So you come off branch, you get your ammo, you get the ammo. If it's, I forgot what it is, equal, greater or equal to 1. So if you have at least 1, basically, come off the branch. If that's true, allow it to fire projectile. So you could put this branch on the input action, or you could put it before the do once. So you could drag off there. You could drag it there. Both of them will do the same thing. It's just basically saying it will only fire this projectile if you've got more than 1. But you don't really actually want this on this thing, actually, I've just realized, because it's not going to make this calculation otherwise. I know, yeah, that kind of works. Just, yeah, so, yeah, you would have, basically, it wouldn't let you shoot, basically, unless you had more than 1 bullet left. See, so it's just minusing 1 from your ammo, setting the ammo, and then spawning the actor. And then it's not letting you fire unless you have more than 1. And then pretty much if you would pick up, so say like in my coin pickup thing where I'll show you how to pick up coins, that could be ammo, and it would just give you another 50 in your ammo variable and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's pretty much a really, really basic spawn projectile. So there's a lot of different things you can do with this. So this wouldn't necessarily be the way I would spawn a projectile. Very similar, but you can, for example, create custom events that are within animations. So I can't remember what they're called, like anim notifies, and then you would have your projectile spawned through an animation rather than through pressing it here. But pretty much pressing it here would trigger the animation anyway. So there's a lot of different ways to do stuff. You could add a sound. You could add your gunshot in this bit of play sound 2D. You could have your gunshot in this bit of the code where you're spawning the projectile. You could put the play sound on the spawn of the bullet. So you could come into your bullet and you could play sound here. So every time a bullet was spawned, it would make a sound. There's lots and lots of different ways to do stuff. Another thing to another my cat's playing around. Another thing to remember when it comes to spawning stuff, projectile movement as well, is it doesn't always have to be a bullet. So in one of the game jam things that I made, I added projectile movement to the car because the car was only going straight down the road. I could just add projectile movement to it, spawn it the same way as I'm spawning it. So I'd have it in a level, spawn actor, and get socket location and give it a location to spawn from, and it would just come straight down the road. So, it doesn't always have to be a bullet. You can also make it so this bullet just has no collision at all, and it's just the optical illusion of a bullet flying, and the actual thing that's doing the damage and stuff are line traces that are added in the third person character code and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different ways to do things. Just try and just mess around and try and just learn stuff, and try and do your codes slowly and try and break down other things and change other things and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I hope that tutorial made some sense. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.